Hello, everybody, and welcome to this SBC Digital Summit in India today. I'm very happy to be together with such panelists today to discuss about one of the hottest topics of the moment. We discuss about India, cricket, and everything that is related to that. I will start presenting myself for the people that they don't know me yet. I am Domenico Mazzola, Commercial Director of Altenar. And Altenar is a sportsbook supplier. We work as a B2B, and we serve operators from all around the world that are in needs of a sportsbook. Now, I would like to start this panel giving the possibility to my favorite panelists today to give them the chance to introduce themselves. So, please, Russell, you can start if you like.
Brilliant. Thank you for the introduction. Hi, guys. I'm Yershon. I've been in the sportsbook marketing business now for over 12 years. 4 years ago, I set up a unique business called Connecting Brands, which delivers and activates partnerships in sports for the sports betting and gaming industry.
Very good. Please, Seemant, do you like to join us presenting yourself?
Thank you very much, Domenico. So my name is Seemant Shankar, and I'm running a real money trivia company here in India for the last 4 years. One of the very early movers in the country and in the industry. What brings me to this forum is that we're also connected to almost 6 out of the top 10 the sports fantasy platforms in the country as a supplemental trivia platform for them. And also part of the Real Money Gaming Federation and the Mobile Federation in the country, which has a lot to do with the regulatory, a lot of noise that is happening around regulatory things in India. So one of the people who is at the forefront in navigating through this gray maze in the country. So looking forward to a very good session here. We have wonderful people as my panelists, and I hope you guys have all of your questions in your mind, and I would be happy to answer whatever I can in my capacity.
Very good. Please, William, I think now is your turn.
Hi, everybody. So my name is William Howie. I head up the premium cricket product of Sportradar, as that's the premium cricket service, otherwise known as PCS. So we operate in regulated markets. We offer a cricket betting product. It's the market leader in that field. So wins a 6% hold with an unmatched coverage. Sorry for that shameless plug. It's true. To the topic of the discussion today, we work in regulated markets, and we definitely favor the regulated market, especially with respect to India as a huge unregulated market at the moment, where the end user is effectively unprotected. Therefore, people suffer. We would like to see that change. The other key point that I hope we touch upon today is that of corruption, given that the market is currently unpoliced. Bringing it back to the topic of cricket, the sport of cricket itself suffers because of that. So for those two main reasons, Sportradar's premium cricket are very much in favor of regulation.
Very good. Actually, today during this topic, I would like to touch some points that we mentioned already during the presentation, starting from the regulation perspective, then going to a little bit more deep in the product, especially when we talk about cricket. And then also we have I have some interesting topics and questions that I want to discuss with you guys regarding business in general in India. So maybe we can start from, let's say, the regulation point of view, asking you, Russell, how influential can cricket be in delivering regulation change in India? What's your opinion on that?
Yeah, look, I think cricket can be absolutely massive. Look, we know it's the #1 sport in India. We know it's the #1 sport that is bet on in India, and even in the regulated markets. William, obviously, I'm sure you'll back this up. Cricket is hugely bet on. And there's lots of turnover there, and that can definitely help the regulation because obviously, the unregulated part, the corruption side. So with the product that I know that Sportradar have, Everything is 100% that works well. And that's key to progress to the Indian market, that the market can be regulated. And obviously, I'm sure for the government in India, if everything can progress, there's going to be significant earnings that they'll be able to make once everything's regulated, because the turnover is going to be so high. So the tax implications that the government will be able to have because of regulating betting can work. I think the market only needs to look at USA and how that started, that once you can regulate everything, you bring everything in-house, and it can be a win-win for the consumer, that they know that everything is regulated correctly. And obviously for the government and India itself, again, it's something that's proofread.
Good. Guys, feel free to jump in if anybody else wants to comment on what Russell just said.
So I'll add to Russ. I completely agree. India is a religion. I mean, India cricket is a religion. And if you notice the following of the sport in terms of volumes, even if you take it globally, it is one of the most followed sports in the world, thanks to being the second largest populated country in the world as well, right? Now, if you look at the cricket betting and gaming industry, up till now, it has been majorly in the black. It has not been regulated, and therefore it has just been deemed illegal and banned. With fantasy coming in, I think the government has started to move their focus in recognizing fantasy gaming as a separate industry and a separate vertical altogether, and providing safe harbor within the nation to fantasy operators in terms of taxation and in terms of legalities and other criminal proceedings, etc. So yes, I think over the last year, because of COVID, gaming has come in the forefront of the government's notice, and they do believe that there is massive amount of revenue that can be made. And regulation is needed, or purely because they want to protect its citizens from, either fraud or illegal gaming or misrepresentation, which is required in any industry that grows big. And I think, but what I feel that we're moving in the right direction as a nation. I'm very happily surprised to see that the government is taking due conscience on making this something that could be regulated and making this something that can be actually built into a wide appeal industry.
Understand. Very good point. William, do you want to add anything on this?
Well, I suppose most things have been covered there, but just to retouch upon the most important point that Seemant mentioned well there, which is the protection of the end user, which the government is interested in, and that is the key difference between a regulated and an unregulated market. And I think often we can get confused with all the conversations about the workings of the business, tax, benefits to international companies such as ourselves, that it gets forgotten a bit the real purpose of regulation, and that is protecting the man on the ground who actually interacts with the market. And at the moment, that doesn't happen at all. We know from our study that it's a multi-billion-dollar market, the India underground betting market, which means a hell of a lot of people are interacting with that market and are currently unprotected and effectively at the hands of criminals running the industry there. So I think that's the key point. But yeah, it was well mentioned by Seemant.
Very good. And then I would like to stay on the regulation point of view with a question for you, Seemant. What do you think should be the approach in terms of regulation then? What should be the model to follow? And especially how to gain consensus among all the stakeholders. Do you have any suggestion for us?
Absolutely. So this has been a topic of conversation between me and my fellow gaming companies that we're part of this big group. And also on WhatsApp, we continuously keep having these chat sessions to understand how should regulations be approached by the government for the incumbents. Well, first of all, I believe having a recognized self-regulatory body is absolutely essential. Reason being that we understand our business the best. We understand our users the best. We understand user behavior, whether it is negative or positive, in the best way possible. If I were to leave it just for an independent government body to do it, we are going to be working around regulations built by people who don't understand the industry well enough, who don't understand the mechanics well enough. So first of all, yes, I think the good thing is that the government itself is proposing that why don't we take the top X players, which can comprise of 66% of the market, create a self-regulatory recognized panel where these regulations can be set in consensus with the remaining, with all the operating platforms in the country, understand the challenges that they face on a user level, understand the challenges that they face on a taxation level and on an advertising level, and try to keep the customer and user protection in mind. So the good thing is what we were recommending was to have a self-regulatory panel built by the industry incumbents. And that is exactly where the government is also suggesting, that is what the government is also looking. And that would be the best approach. I think that happens in every other industry federation as well. If you come to look at whether it is business or trade or electronic commerce, they have these self-regulatory bodies which have been set up, which are the major force behind the regulations which are being deployed within the nation, whether it's India or any other nation in the world. So I think the same should happen here as well.
Understand. Anybody else here wants to add something after Seemant, guys?
Nothing to add for me on this one. Well said, Seemant.
Good. So, Russell, you want to add something?
No, I'll just say, obviously, with Seemant being on the ground in India, again, from that perspective, he's the best person to advise on what's going to happen next.
Yes, very good. I totally agree. So, William, next, it's a question for you because, of course, you represent a company that is at the moment the market leader in cricket supplying, and we all know how crucial is cricket for India. Not only when it comes to sports betting, but as Seemant said, it's more a religion. So, in your opinion, what are the key elements connected to cricket operators should consider when planning to expand their presence on the territory?
So, before even getting to the specifics of cricket, I think to enter the new regulated market, key things will be to have a decent managed trading service as part of your operation, so such as Sportradar's MTS, which allows you to adequately observe business coming in and therefore comply with any regulations in the new market. So that is the first thing that is needed in general. The second would be contributing to a system like Sportradar's FDS, the fraud detection system. So as I touched upon in my introduction, one of the major benefits of regulation is to crack down on corruption. And bringing that specifically back to cricket, cricket has a bad reputation with betting. If you speak to people within the game itself and you say the B word, you get looked at in a strange way because the reputation around betting in cricket is to do with match fixing, it's to do with corruption, it's to do with cheating. So in order to break down that reputation, to make the game safe from that corruption, what we need to do is be able to police the market properly. So in order to do that, operators need to play ball. They need to contribute towards things like Sportradar's FDS or similar, and allow the market to be policed properly. So finally, with specific regard to cricket, the product that operators need to provide needs to be better and more enticing than the current underground market product. So they need to offer more markets, they need to have higher uptime, they need to have better engagement, they need to have better support, and ultimately show the respect, care, and that support to the end user that maybe the underground market hadn't before.
Understand. Well, you touched a really interesting point, which is about, let's say, the match fixing and the connection with cricket in general as a perspective. I would move then the attention on the player perspective, because of course, if there is a fixed match, there are some players that can get advantage out of it. So to come back to you, Seemant, what kind of system shall the industry implement to create form of cooperation for fraud management and responsible users? is a central database a possible approach? Because we discussed this in general in the industry about this approach of a central database, and I want to understand a little bit more. What's your opinion on that?
So I think that's a beautiful point you just touched. And that is something that we believe would be the most proactive way to deal with it. Once things get legalized, once things get regulated, we believe that there are going to be more and more players coming inside the territory who will be operating inside the fantasy space. So yes, it'll also open the territory up to a lot of international players to come in. Now, we have to understand that we have the user who is operating within the fantasy platform is a single user, right? He could be, and what we notice in India, and I'm sure other regions of the world as well, is that one user generally operates within multiple fantasy platforms. So it's not just he just goes to platform A to play, but he would be actually engaging with platform A, B, C, and D all together at the same time, and try to maximize his advantages of winning and also maximize or mitigate his risk within different bets or different gambles that he's taking on the platforms. Now, one thing that's important here is that there are two things that we have to be very careful about. One is the fraud management. Yes, there are certain players who would commit fraud. Fortunately, it would not be a very high percentage so far. It has not been a very high percentage so far. And the second thing is about responsible gaming, right? Can we identify whether a player is playing recklessly? And it takes time for that data to be built by a singular platform, right? The more it requires the user to engage for a certain amount of time for platform A to have enough data collected around that player to really segment him as a person who is either playing irresponsibly or is a potential to fraud. Now, having a central database where all of these incumbents can connect to would allow each player who is playing on any of these platforms to be identified, at least on the basis that, I have red flagged this user on my platform that, I think he has not been playing responsibly, or there is a potential fraud that he may have committed. And with the help of, his activity on other platforms, we can continue to build a credit line or a credit history for that user. Just like, if you have these financial organizations, they have a credit history in place, which other banks can connect to. So the moment I want to apply for a loan in bank A, they can connect to a singular database and see whether this user has had a history of paying his loans on time, etc. So a similar system can be built. We can definitely take Will's help and try to see how much of his platform can actually connect and deliver onto what the bigger vision is. But I think eventually, in the terms of regulations, we have to regulate the user more than anything else, and also help newer platforms to come in who don't have enough user data about that particular user yet to at least identify that, you got user 1, 2, 3 coming on the platform. Do not display a lobby of more than 100 rupees to him. And try to let him build his reputation in the industry as such to open up higher price points for him. That will kind of help also give the government and regulatory bodies inside the country a breather and more confidence that, we are working together as a group, and also working towards that common vision of protecting the end user from anything wrong happening to him or to the platform for that matter.
Then it's an interesting point, Seemant. I believe that then the challenge will be to convince the players to supply all this data and to even connect it with the bank.
So the good thing is that we are a very tight-knit community. There are a lot of players, but the largest of the players are always talking to each other to figure out how can we collaborate together. Even non-fantasy players are trying to see whether, if a person is playing irresponsibly on platform A, which could be a fantasy platform, he can also potentially play responsibly on a poker platform. He can also play responsibly on a trivia platform. So I think this is one common, and not just limited to fantasy, right? So when we talk about the real gaming player federation here in the country, it's actually a very tight-knit player. And fortunately, we have seen a lot of proactiveness in trying to work with each other and help the industry as such, because we're at a point of inflection in the country. Up till 2020, we were worried that, look, 2021 can either be a bang or a bust, right? Because the government can look at it in any one way. And generally, when people don't understand something, the best way is to stop it, till they gather enough confidence to let it go again. So we were actually worried that, if we do not work together, if we do not really help each other in trying to understand and build confidence within the government, we might end up into an eventuality where the government may just give a blanket ban, or maybe have a very, very expensive license that we'll have to procure just to operate. Fortunately, the reason where we're seeing so much of tread happening, so much of ground that is treaded in the government side, is purely because of that very, very tight-knit relationship that we have with each other. So I think if we can agree on what are the data points that we're happily ready to share, and because we're also getting benefit from those data points, right? So I think it is something that can be worked towards. It's very nascent. I think it's in its infancy. It's just a thought right now, but it's a good area to actually start thinking more on.
Understand. Yes. So, well, let's move then from the regulation perspective to a little bit more on the business and product side. And I want Russell's opinion on a point that I have in my notes. Then we checked a little bit. We know the calendar, the cricket calendar this year, and we know there will be some big tournaments. So, in your opinion, Russell, how important are these tournaments for legislative change in gaming? Do you think they can influence a change?
Yeah, I think so, and I hope so. This year, you've got the IPL that's coming back to be staged in India. Obviously, the IPL this time last year was postponed, obviously, because of the COVID outbreak. But it was great for the IPL that it managed to take it to the UAE. And that seemed to be an absolutely superb tournament. Great amount of entertainment. And I think, although it wasn't staged in India, I think the viewers, it was a success. But obviously this year, although it's yet to be officially confirmed, it looks like the IPL will take place in April and May this year. So I think everything's being done to deliver that. I believe the draft is happening very soon, which again gets everyone extremely excited for the tournament. And also later this year, the ICC T20 World Cup is also to be hosted in India between October and November. So that's two absolutely gigantic tournaments that the turnover and revenue is going to be massive. And obviously you've got the England national team that have just finished a 3-test series in Sri Lanka that now head to India for test matches. And again, both teams coming off really good wins. England winning in Sri Lanka, and India producing a historic performance in Australia to win there in test match. So cricket, both at test level and at short form, I don't think is in any better health. So although we're in this period that we are now, I think for cricket as a whole, it hasn't been in this great deal of health. And I think it can definitely help, obviously, bring the nation together. Again, switching over to obviously the UK, everyone's in lockdown, but football is on pretty much 24/7. And the commentators and even the players believe that them playing, obviously it being on broadcast, does help the nation with this lockdown. I think in India as well, Seemant, correct me if I'm wrong, I think in the IPL back to India to be hosted in April and May, plus the tournament later this year and the test matches, which is about to start, is going to be fantastic for the country and for the game.
Very, very good, very good. Yes, I agree. Anybody else wants to comment on this?
Yeah, I would just add on to Russell's points. With the phenomenal performance that we have shown in Australia, I think this year is going to be pretty big for cricket in India. Reason why I'm referring to the Australian performance is because that sort of has increased the enthusiasm amongst cricket, for cricket amongst the general user base in the country by a very, very big level. Last year's IPL was a serious challenge, and it's beautiful how they have been able to pull it off with absolutely no audiences in the stadium and still mimicking a stadium full of audiences by adding sound effects to the game, etc. And I think that has been a very, very bold move that has been taken, and it has really worked well. The experience was beautiful. We did not experience any shortfall in viewership. In fact, the viewership had only increased from the year before. And we believe that with the IPL now coming back in its former glory, I think this year is going to be a very, very definitive year for Indian cricket and for cricket as such globally as well. So we believe that this is the right time to really have the incumbents come in, more players come in into the fantasy area, and also try to see that how we can really work together in a rapid way to make this legalized, to open up the regulations and to just let everyone win in this.
I understand. Now let's jump a little bit on the product then, and I have a question for you, William. I mean, based on your experience, what are the key markets for cricket offerings that should be considered as a must-have? We understood that there must be some prevention systems like the MTS or the fraud system that you have, but in terms of betting offering for markets, what should be the must-have for an operator that wants to enter into this cricket business?
Okay. Interesting question. So, as I mentioned before in my previous point, what regulated operators need to do as they enter the market is provide a product that's more compelling, more enticing than the existing underground option. Because regulation doesn't mean that those current underground operators are just going to go away. So there is an emphasis on the regulated operator to have a better product and be able to shift the business towards the regulated side of the market. So to do that, we have to look at the regulated product and add the things that they don't have. So some of the markets that they don't offer would be the fast play style betting on the next delivery, for example. How many runs in the next delivery? Will there be a wicket in the next delivery? These kind of things. The other things that are not really present in the underground market at the moment are combo bets. So in the UK over here, these are really, really popular in football betting, for example. So build your own bet style accumulators with many different selections in, which aren't typically present in the unregulated Indian market at the moment. So it's about looking at what the unregulated market currently offers and trying to fill those gaps and offer the end user something better on the surface in order to move them over. And then once they're in, referring back to my previous point, the emphasis is on care and showing them a better service, better support and more respect than they would have had before in an unregulated market. And that means faster payouts, fewer pout bets, better live chat service, less pain getting your money out once you've won a bet. All these kind of things is a responsibility moving from unregulated to regulated that the operator really has to look after the customer.
I understand. Yes, I agree, and in general, I would say that new operators should really push on localizing the product, not only when it comes to cricket, but in general as a user experience, in order to understand the behavior of Indian bettors and try to tailor a product that is, let's say, that adapts to their requirements. Yes, I agree with you, William.
I would add one more thing, though, if that's all right. Is that it's a really interesting question that you ask, and operators should think about that really. But ultimately, they don't have to think about it now because they can just integrate Sportradar's premium cricket, which has done the thinking for them, and the product is ready to go when the market opens up. So another shameless plug, I think it is the appropriate answer to your question.
Yes, understand. So everybody should go to Sportradar and solve their problems. Yes.
Yeah, you had that, not me, but it sounds great.
Yes. Then I have, let's say, last question. Then I'm seeing here already questions coming in. Russell, for you, this. I mean, how to say it? For gaming companies entering in the Indian market, we understood and we discussed a little bit about product, about what it takes to enter the region. But do you think that is important and you can gain credibility if you decide to secure a cricket ambassador in for your operation, to sponsor your operation? How important this could be for an operator?
Thanks. Great question there. Yeah, I absolutely think that obviously within the fantasy market that Seemant mentioned earlier, and obviously for the new operators coming into the Indian market, I think to secure a cricket legend as an ambassador, to give content, to use their image rights in marketing can be very, very powerful. As Seemant said, obviously on the back of India's fantastic win in Australia and the forthcoming IPL and ICC T20 tournaments, to have a cricket ambassador there to give content, exclusive interviews, to give their content on who's going to win, their preview, to drive the engagement, to drive the excitement ahead of the events, I think is absolutely crucial, because I think there will be a lot of players that come into the market now because of the anticipation of potential regulation. To have a cricket ambassador can work really, really well. And obviously you've got England legends, Australian, South African, West Indian legends that are well known by the Indian community. Having them in your marketing, I think, can be very powerful. And from running brand ambassadors, both here in the UK and abroad, there's been a clear success that when you secure one, it does give you that edge over competitors, because when you look at your site, you're going to have the brand ambassador's image all over it, and it helps in the marketing to secure the player. And I think, as I just mentioned, it does help credibility as well, especially when trust, as William said, is very important to protect the player. I think if the player knows that a certain ambassador is working for them, I think that can really help as well.
I'd like to add to Russell. So yes, if you look at ambassadors, it is not just limited to the cricketers per se.
Yes.
You've noticed even the commentators have worked well.
Please.
The commentators have worked well. Some empires are very well known by the Indian community as well, who have who've been able to stand out. How an ambassador really helps is that it gives the user the perception that this is a platform that they can depend on. Getting an ambassador is not something that you can just go online and buy on Flipkart or Amazon, right? So you have to have a certain relationship that has to be built in. You need to have the ambassador also trust your platform to lend his name to you. So it sort of works as a mutual two-way street for the user to feel that just because I have a player, our platform has an ambassador in place, there has been a mutual trust that is built between the ambassador and the platform, which they can then rely on. And I think that really, really helps build confidence in the user community by a very, very high level.
Good. So I would jump, because we are getting many questions, and we are almost finishing the time at our disposal today. So I will start with the first question from Mr. Stasos Belesis. So he's asking, earnings. Is there an organized campaign strategy to make cricket known to markets or territories that are not familiar at all with cricket? For example, USA, Germany, Italy, Spain, etc. Who wants to answer this question?
I can try to take a jab at it. So first, we believe that there is so much of land that is still left for us to cover, even within the regions where cricket is recognized. So one is that. The other thing is that a lot of the Indian community is spread across a lot of these countries that you're talking about. US has a very huge Indian community in place. And getting those community members to become the evangelists of the sport within the region becomes the most effective way to really work and enter into that region. So is there an organized campaign strategy ready right now? No, it's not. But yes, I think right now our platforms within the country are already having their hands full just to cater to the user base that is potentially available in the region of India itself, right? Once we are through this, that's when we'll actually looking at going into other regions where people do not know too much about cricket, and how do we really strategize on getting them to become more aware about it. But yes, that's a good idea. We believe that, yes, we can use the existing Indian community, use the existing UK community in a lot of these countries, and who can actually evangelize the sport in there and promote it within, and probably work with those groups which can actually help us enter those regions.
Good, good. Well, we have a next question coming from Duncan Sapiano, asking about, apart from cricket, what are the other major sports in India in terms of betting?
Well,
Who wants to answer?
I can take this up, and maybe Russ and William can add on to it. If you were to look at sports apart from cricket, so cricket is like, I would say 80-90% of the market, right? The remaining of the market would be a game called Kabaddi, which is basically something that is picking up. We have our own Kabaddi leagues now, like in IPL, there is a proper Kabaddi league which has events in a certain time of the year, and that's actually gaining a lot of traction. Football also is picking up. There are a lot of states in India which follow football far more religiously than other states, I would say. So if I were to look at the next two areas, the biggest is Kabaddi. That's a very local sport in India. Football and tennis would be the next two that you can probably look at. But again, nothing close to what cricket can give you.
All right. And then I think we get another question for you, Seemant, because it's about regulation. Do we have, coming from René Gabriel, do you think, is there any expectation about when we can see some regulation coming in? And what could be the first regulated region? Thank you.
So, so if you come to look at it, we don't really have timelines. There have been some draft guidelines which have been issued by the government already, and they're seeking comments coming in from the community, and we're working with the government on a very regular, ongoing basis. Till then, the good thing is that it's not that things are banned. Some states have decided to ban it till a proper regulation comes out, but you would say a majority of the country is still open. I would say that if guidelines would come in, I mean, I'm sure they will. I would believe they would be somewhere before IPL hits, because IPL is a very, very big cricketing event in the country. So we're hoping to have IPL, go live around April or May, and so I believe that maybe end of March or early April would be a good time to expect a proper formalized guidelines to come into place.
Understand. Then. Next, Danny Thomas is asking, hi, gents, do you see the use of FTP competitions for player acquisition in the Indian market, such as kingofcricket.com? What do you think, guys?
FTP, yes, there are a few FTP players available in the region who are in the fantasy area. The competition would go up primarily because volumes are great, but all you have to also keep in mind is India is not a very ad revenue heavy region, if I were to call it that. You probably will get the lowest revenue per unit globally, one of the lowest in the world, if I were to call it that. But yes, I would see that, yes, it could be done well. A lot of the platforms which are right now providing pay to play also have FTP versions within the platform. So I think it's already been covered. It's easier for a person to play for free in one platform and migrate to a paying user on the same platform than to play for free on one platform and then migrate into a paying user on a different platform. So I think the experience has to be seamless. Having an individual FTP player, would they be able to compete with the integrated FTP and pay to play? I'm not too sure about that. I think as a user myself, I would like to be on a platform where I can migrate seamlessly.
I understand. Good point. Then, before we close this panel, we have the last question, guys, which is coming from James Gamstone and saying, how can affiliates play their role? I mean, this is also, in my opinion, could be another very long discussion, because it involves the discussion between, let's say, is India a little bit more on the web affiliate side of things, or using more agents? I mean, what's your take on this, guys?
So affiliates have a very big role to play. I've seen that there has been a lot of affiliate engagement that is taking place. But yes, nothing where I really have any true data to really back this on. I think as we move forward, let's try to build a stronger affiliate community and try to see how things will pan out. I think it's a very big region. It's a very big untapped region still. And there is a lot of things that can happen which could surprise us.
Good, good. Well, before we wrap up this session, I would like to mention, guys, the fact that SBC is hosting a follow-up chat to this session in a working bar, where all guests will be welcome to share their thoughts on this topic. You can ask questions, engage with us and the other people in the audience. If you want to attend, I think you can go back to the conference platform and navigate to the networking bar, or there should be a link on top of the right of this screen to go directly from there. So I really would like to thank you so much, guys, for participating here to this, what I thought was a very good discussion about India in general, and we all can agree on the potential of this market. So thank you really so much again for being here today, and we will discuss soon.